I'm slating for you. This is take number one, hopefully the only take we do. Hey everyone, we're Cubs Refrain. We're doing an episode with Music of the Future for Behind the Song. My name's Jordan.
I'm Erin.
We're Cubs Refrain.
And we're here to talk to you about our song, Never Enough. Oh, it's never enough. That's how the song goes. The meaning of the song. Jordan, take it away. This kind of came out of you.
Yeah. It had been like a pretty long time since I had written a song, which kind of is weird. A weird thing to say as a musician, especially trying to, come off of a second album, I think, or come off of a first album. I think that that's like where a lot of musicians run into major difficulty is, you've done your first album, you've had a long time to write it. And then the second album, I think is, you get sort of caught up in promoting the first, and then all of a sudden the music just sort of gets set aside for a little bit. And I think it was really starting to get me down, starting to make me feel like every time that I was trying to really like push the music, push a song or whatever, it just didn't really feel like it was going where I wanted it to. And I think people who know both Erin and I, we're pretty driven people. We're pretty, we know what we want, and we try our hardest to get it. And, sometimes you just don't meet your own expectations. And I think that despite that, you have to make it look like you are meeting your expectations, especially in the music industry. You need to make it seem like, you're doing a lot. And it's not to say that we weren't doing a lot. We were doing tons of stuff.
I'll also say, like, sometimes you just set your own expectations way too high.
Way too high, for sure. And this song kind of just explores how you can have those two sides, how there's that sort of anxiety underneath that really is, in a sense, part of your fuel, but in a lot of ways it's being scared and being self-critical to the point where you can't really do a whole lot, and you don't know if it's just you or if everyone is feeling like that. And so the song itself, it was crafted so that it's got this sort of really fun facade. And I think that is supposed to be analogous to the facade that we put on. But really, once you dig into the lyrics and the content of the song, you start to understand, okay, it's about anxiety. It's about, putting on a brave face. And I think that is like how those sort of two elements come into play is, I don't think I'm saying that very well.
You are. Yeah.
Never enough.
It's about, exactly.
And I mean, like,
you set your expectations.
You set your expectations way too high. And I mean, even in the, I know that it's sort of getting a little bit ahead, but even in the production of the song, like, I produce and mix the song. And even in the mix, like, there were times when it was like, am I just second guessing my gut? Like, if I'm mixing someone else's music, I typically know when it's done. I know when, you've hit diminishing returns and there's no longer any point to, I guess, like, continue, because you're not going to make it any better at that point. A lot of times, if you just keep working on it and tweaking it, you're just going to kind of ruin it.
Yeah, pick it apart too much.
Exactly.
And take away what was really the essence of it.
Yeah, that's right. So, I mean, with this song, like, it kind of, every step, I don't know if it was because I was listening to it so much that I started to really, like, believe what I was saying. Not saying that I wrote it and not believing it, but I do think that there's a real catharsis to music, and it'll always bring you back to, like, a certain feeling. And now this song, like, I wrote it actually fairly quickly. And another kind of weird thing is I had been doing, primarily for our last album, almost all of the music was written on keys. on synths and piano and whatnot. But I'm primarily a guitarist, or at least I grew up playing guitar, and that's really what I consider to be my main writing tool. And really, without that, it challenged me to write different music. In the first album, but then for this, it was like I just sort of needed some comfort. I needed something familiar, and so I wrote. This was actually written entirely on guitar to start, and then I just translated it.
I actually didn't know that.
Yeah,
that's funny.
Yeah,
because just for background too, like when you wrote this song, the first time you showed it to me, you had basically put the whole track together. It like fell out of you, I feel like, in a night.
For sure, it did.
Which was awesome. And so I heard it when it was basically all together. And then you and I worked on a second verse and put that in. But just as you were saying with how you wrote it and then you actually started believing what you were saying, I think that totally makes sense, because when you wrote it, it just fell out of you, and then later you're looking back on it or listening to it and being like, oh yeah, like this, I really feel this right now. I felt that with other songs too.
Music, I find that, like, I try not to write music to be, too much of a journal entry. I want it to be like a little bit more, I want to feel like I'm a little bit more in control of it. But I mean, there's certainly times when, a song just sort of happens and you don't really know what it is, like how I'm assessing myself. Like maybe I haven't been honest with myself about how I'm feeling. I don't know if I necessarily would have written that song if I'd known exactly what I wanted to write about. I think retrospectively, it totally makes sense. And as I started to understand it in production, that's when I started to put together the pieces and make it kind of feel like that juxtaposed, like the feeling plus the message, they sort of are at odds. And I wanted that conflict and that sort of feeling of like edgy anxietyness between the two elements to come into play. So yeah, I think I kind of leaned into that with the production, but my vision wasn't the song as it started. My vision was just, I was actually just playing guitar, and it came out. Here we are.
So that's kind of where the song came from, and a bit of the production side of it. What the recording process was like. I mean, kind of like I said, I didn't see a lot of it when the original track was put together. Why don't you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so the recording process of Never Enough, I wish it were a little bit more exciting. I do typically a lot of producing just in my apartment. I've got all my synths and whatnot.
Just Jordan alone in his bedroom.
Just me alone in my bedroom.
With like pillowed walls.
Yeah, pretty much. We tie-dyed them, so they're tie-dyed pillows. I'm actually not in my apartment right now. I'm elsewhere.
Yeah. His apartment is a lot busier.
You could say that. I mean, around the time that I was producing this, I was experimenting quite heavily with vocoders. I'm not really sure why I got into a little bit of like, I don't know, like a Daft Punk Imogen Heap sort of kick. And I was just listening to it, and I really thought that the expression through the synthesizer was like a really interesting way to sort of say what you want to say. There's like a subtlety to it that you can add to a vocoder where you don't necessarily even realize that that there's anything being said. And that was sort of what I wanted to push through. So there's actually like a good bit of vocoder all throughout the song, and it's underneath the main line. And it's basically me saying, it's never enough, it's never enough. But I'm playing the synth over top of it, so it's sort of grabbing onto certain words that I say here and there. And it really comes out kind of the most in the bridge. I mean, I always hear it because I know that that's how it's done. So I have no idea how it's been perceived.
Yeah, and it's what I was singing at the beginning of this video too, and it made me realize that just you saying that people probably don't even know what part of the song that is.
Yeah, and it's I was pleasantly surprised how well it fit in um with everything else. And it sort of just works as a fun lead line, really. And you got sort of like those like quacky, distorted synths over top of it that are sort of like you really want it to just kind of punch through and accentuate the kind of what you're saying. I mean, that's kind of. I mean, obviously that's not it. I mean, I put a lot of
That's it.
I put a lot of other stuff into this song. I mean,
You
when it
did.
when it comes to my general production style, I've always been a big fan of sort of like a wall of sound, and really like the big difficulty there is just making sure that you've got vocal clarity
Mm-hmm.
throughout the song. So going back to our first album and how how Never Enough has been produced has been quite a shift. A lot more vocal centric. We took a ton of vocal takes for
Yeah.
this song, and really just like tried to put together the best version of it. I think we really wanted this to feel super polished. It's pretty much like, best of my ability at the time, I guess. Um, which I think is, I'm pretty happy with how it's come out so far. I actually went back and I listened to our first album, and it's
hard to listen to.
hard to listen to now.
Yeah. But your vocals on this song, is that what you're commenting on?
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
A
Yeah. No,
little sidetracked there.
maybe I like zoned out when you said that. Um, but no, I totally agree. This is like, yeah, this is when Jordan's voice really came out in this song. This is really you.
It was, yeah. And I think, I mean, being a duo and with how much material we often, overlap, um, I wanted to try and bring Aaron in, um, vocally to have a little bit more of a presence. Then we talked about it and it just didn't really feel right. It didn't really feel like it was the move that needed to be taken to, I think, like, I guess, like to bring the song to where it needed to be, you know? It really sort of felt like this one was something that I needed to say. So I mean, Erin is in there. She's rocking the background vocals.
Oh yeah, yeah. But I think it adds to kind of the message of the song, or it added to it. That's maybe why we decided to just have your vocals as the central focus
of it, right?
Sorry?
Just the solitude of it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like if you had two people singing it, it's almost like you're in it with someone else, but the kind of the point of it, or part of the point of it, is that it's feeling of isolation. Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, background vocals. Those were fun.
Background vocals were fun. Yeah. There's a lot. I mean, if in the course there's, I don't know, probably like 12 to 16 tracks of background vocals.
Yeah, like
pretty deep.
Me and like Jordan and myself. And I feel like you don't hear a lot of them, and a lot of them are like very tucked in. So you might be like, what are you talking about background vocals? But they're there. There's lots.
Absolutely.
Yeah. We didn't work with really anyone else on the song. It was just the two of us, and really Jordan driving it, and me along for the ride.
Yeah, I think whenever I get pretty deep into my own mixes, I'll sometimes bounce them off other people. It's usually people who I know can tell me, like, you've got way too much like 3K happening right here. You've got, the snare sounds like shit.
3K, let's talk real nerdy.
You're no mono compatibility.
Yeah, throw out some other terms. Um,
I'm not gonna keep going on that. But basically, yeah, like the only time I really looked for any sort of like external help in the production of it was really just bouncing off like, does this mix sound how I think it sounds? Um,
mhm.
Thankfully, I feel like the mix converted pretty well. My mixes have been converting pretty well recently, which I'm happy about. Don't
Yeah, it's
that.
it's been pretty awesome to hear the progression as we referenced our first album, just
Yeah,
like hearing Jordan's mixing and producing abilities. They've been like it's cool.
they've increased, we'll say.
Not
But I mean, it's and then I guess tying it back into the theme of it being never enough. Like at some point, if I'm not trusting my gut on when something's done, how am I going to know when something is? How am I going to know when something's actually done? So I think that I definitely sort of was craving a little bit of external validation that what I was doing was good.
you were on track and potentially ready to put your pen down.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, at the very least, I knew that it was going to be a step forward from where we were on the first album sonically. And I do feel that like the production tied in nicely to everything else. So sort of as a whole picture, it felt like as a whole package, it felt like it was a better offering to, whoever wanted to listen to it. But I think to really just sort of like get me to that end point, I needed, like Aaron, yes, like this is good, like a few other friends, yes, like it's sounding great. Um, you know,
You're a
car
little,
test it,
yeah,
listen to it
being
on my phone,
glaring.
listen to it, you know, through good speakers, through bad speakers. And, it was translating well and I was happy with where everything was hitting. And, yeah, we just kind of
Yeah.
called it.
And then we should say though we did get it mastered by Noah Mintz. He had a hand in it.
Yeah.
Um,
Big
and
fan
then
big fan of his work. If you're a
yeah,
musician looking to get your stuff mastered, Noah kills it.
Lacquer Channel Mastering in Toronto. Um, yeah, so after mastering too, we also teamed up with um, I mean it's not really song related, but release related. We had help from Luke Montgomery on videography, and Nick Graham did the original painting. That was our album artwork. Just feel like we should shout out to them because they're great.